The acceleration of artificial intelligence is so brightly lit that it has obscured the extent to which the politics of technology is also accelerating. Silicon Valley's project of achieving machine autonomy, artificial general intelligence, superintelligence, and what Mustafa Suleyman recently called seemingly conscious AI, is calling forth a protective response from American society, which is striving to preserve wide swathes of precious human goods. This social response is not pro-China, anti-innovation, or doomer. It is natural, necessary, and inevitable. Radical social and technological change always generates a protective impulse. As AI accelerates, it also accelerates the very social movements that aim to stop it, slow it down, or channel it in new directions. To further complicate matters, Silicon Valley's AI dream is now structurally supported and endorsed by the federal government. Big tech is now, in other words, a state project, and efforts to invent technologies that surpass human beings in every respect is now established as an article of state ideology. So those who want to protect society now find themselves opposite the very state that should protect them. To make matters still more complicated, both of these impulses, radical technological change and social protection, conflict most directly within the Trump coalition itself. This double movement, as Karl Polanyi called it, is growing most intensely within the Republican Party. And so, if the conflict escalates without resolution, it risks tearing apart the very coalition within which it strives. This would be a tragedy, for though the second movement's current posture is defensive, it contains within itself the counter-assertion of a positive vision and seeks to advance goods that are intrinsic to the human person in a happy future. Things like human nature, the family, parental authority, enriching work, the mind itself, a republican form of government, the influence of religion on the world that we are collectively bringing into being, and much else. My argument will be simple. The Trump administration must take action to incorporate into itself both sides of the double movement. Silicon Valley is already well represented, and then must establish within the government vehicles for dialogue where the two sides can productively interact and negotiate. We will need history's greatest deal-maker to preside over what must be this generation's most intense negotiation. The double movement, as described in Polanyi's classic work, The Great Transformation, provides an account of how society addressed the explosive turmoil of the Industrial Revolution and the creation of market society. It was, as Polanyi put it, a, quote, reaction against the dislocation which attacked the fabric of society, close quote. I won't bother describing the attack here because we are all more or less familiar with it. Most crucial for Polanyi's account of how the act of transformation into England into the market society obscured that the protective reaction came from within society itself. When the market comes to be viewed as prior to society and the state, or more natural, as the liberal story claims, attempts by so-called non-market forces to shape and influence its direction come to be seen as unnatural and emanating from the outside. The upshot for us is that society's response to its own immolation, factory laws, social regulation, land laws, agrarian tariffs, the birth of the labor movement, and other reasonable protections were characterizable by the liberal story as an alien force, stripping protective movements of any moral claim. Worse, the desire to preserve established natural human goods becomes seen, Polanyi writes, as a, quote, covert action and a conspiracy, as if it were contrived and backed by secretive hostile powers. I would suggest that this exact dynamic is playing out today. A stunning expose in the Wall Street Journal reports that, quote, Silicon Valley is putting more than $100 million into a network of political action committees and organizations to advocate against strict artificial intelligence regulations, a signal that tech executives will be active in next year's midterm elections. And why are they doing this? They fear that a, quote, vast force has been assembled to slow down AI deployment. By vast force, They must mean parents around the country, state lawmakers, child safety advocates, and the average person who, trust me, have nowhere near the vast power of their opposition. And they explicitly name conservatives like me, who oppose the 10-year moratorium on state regulation of AI, as being particularly dangerous. The true, more American power, according to this framing, is the one that economist Tyler Cowen recently described as causing the, quote, most profound identity crisis humanity has ever faced, which will, he continues, force, quote, our children and grandchildren to struggle to live meaningful lives in a world where they are no longer the smartest and most capable entities, close quote. It is common among so-called accelerationists to accuse efforts at altering such a bleak vision of the future as complicity with wokeness, or capitulation to the bureaucratic logic of blue states. And they can do that because the protective movement is seen as a hostile outside force. AI is the reality to them. Society is the fiction. Let me add some detail to this vast force that Silicon Valley fears. Big tech is right. It's big and growing fast. It defeated the 10-year moratorium on state AI regulation, as noted, building off the child safety movement that Claire described so eloquently. It has won a recent Supreme Court decision, Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton, that ruled that age verification of pornography sites to be constitutional, baffling the tech policy establishment by overturning nearly 3 decades of precedent. And with a recent Ninth Circuit ruling that social media companies are liable for third-party CSAM, it appears to be chipping away at Section 230 as well. In an important new essay, Joel Thayer and Zephyr Teachout find an even more fundamental change emerging in how the court treats big tech's expansive claims to First Amendment protections. Their reading of TikTok versus Garland and Moody versus NetChoice compellingly finds that SCOTUS is becoming at least hesitant to apply free speech claims to, as NetChoice put it, feeds whose algorithms respond solely to how users act online. As Thayer and Teachout point out, this potentially, quote, encompasses almost all distribution algorithms. But most important of all, the myths surrounding technology are being actively revised under the pressure of today's double movement. In lieu of technological inevitability, lawmakers across the country now believe that they have the power to shape technology for the common good. This sense that we do have a choice has been extended to parents, school administrators, and religious communities, many of whom are following Claire's advice and are taking the tech exit. What of technological progress? 15 years ago, the belief that new inventions were always social improvements was an article of faith in the American creed. Now, a general pessimism about technology has set in, and even some very prominent AI executives and scientists like Mustafa Suleyman and Dario Amodei are crying from the hilltops that their own inventions will wreak untold disaster. Dark feelings about AI run wide. A new poll by Ipsos finds that 47% of American adults, nearly half, agree with the statement that AI is bad for humanity, and a mere 31% disagree with the claim. Almost 70% believe it could have uncontrollable consequences. 71% are concerned that it would cause too many people to lose jobs, and 66% fear that it will replace in-person relationships. As the myth of technological progress is grinding to a halt, the myth of technological neutrality has collapsed. Now, the public's appreciation of technology is so fragmented that it is possible to identify Republican and Democrat technology. There are Republican and Democrat light bulbs, Republican and Democrat cars, social media platforms, and energy sources. Now, Neil Postman's insight that every technology creates winners and losers, and that a new technology always grants some people power over others, has become the common sense position. Hence, the general suspicion, especially under Trump 1, of Silicon Valley as a whole, whose power was quite clearly Democrat power. All of this, I believe, emanates from a single problem, that most people know in their gut that this project, state-sponsored big tech, is not for them. The state's own rationale for AI acceleration is quite explicit about it. We must beat China and grow the economy. These, of course, have significant implications for the future of Americans. But the message is one of bare life. To beat China, you must be willing to part ways with everything, including, we learned earlier, a happier future for your children and grandchildren. Our only way out of this crisis is a politics that ensures that technology is for regular people, the kind that is suited for a regime type such as ours, one by the people and for the people. This requires a particular, though not exclusive, commitment to shaping technology toward helping the American family flourish, because the family is the cradle of society itself. To strengthen the family is to strengthen society. That was the conclusion that my co-authors and I, including Claire, drew in A Future for the Family, a statement of 10 principles to guide conservative technological governance. We believe, we wrote, that public policy should direct technology toward the flourishing of the family and the human person. Family is also the cradle of the future. The future belongs to the family, as John Askenas and I recently wrote in National Affairs, because it is by nature the bearer and raiser of the next generation. The family begets the very beings who will come to witness, judge, and make the times ahead. This insight helps to explain why Silicon Valley and the family are currently at loggerheads, because they are rival claimants to the future. Silicon Valley fails to realize, however, that only the family can genuinely achieve the future. To undermine the family is to threaten the future altogether, including the future of AI. Let's turn to the practical task before us. I'll make 3 concrete recommendations toward helping the administration critically augment its internal discussions about AI, humbly. First, the administration should establish an interagency working group on technology and the family, which would be tasked with studying the challenges that technology in general, including AI, presents to the family, and counsel the president on how technology can empower the family without encroaching on its sacred domain. Second, the administration cannot allow the religion of AI to dominate its spirit and mind. Nowhere is it more important for it to expand its wisdom than on the question of AI itself. We should therefore support the proposal to establish a council aimed at putting the Office of Science and Technology Policy and the White House Faith Office in dialogue to programmatically introduce religious belief and religious practice into AI policy. This would ground the administration's thinking about the purpose of technology and human flourishing in the greatest body of wisdom possible. Third, rather than just assuring the working men and women of this country that productivity growth from increased automation will always benefit them, commit to it as a matter of policy, just as the Vice President did in his speech at the AI Action Summit in Paris. Automation's effects on the livelihood of workers can vary dramatically, as history readily attests and recent studies show. Offer American workers something more muscular than programs to help them transition after job loss, and invite the labor movement directly into the conversation by holding a summit on AI, automation, and labor. Unions have a long history of confronting technological change, and they should be treated as sources of experience and knowledge, rather than as historical dead weight and forces for anti-modernization. If President Trump invited the 2 parts of the double movement into his administration and successfully oversaw a negotiation between them, he would go down in history as one of America's greatest presidents, if not the man who saved the future. Thank you.